At the end of the Second War, Caer Daro's island bastion fell beneath Horde banners. Orc war parties overran the fortress, pried a sacred runestone from its moorings, and shattered the monolith into shards that Gul'dan's warlocks later forged into altars of storms. Engines that dripped raw sorcery into the veins of ogre allies. Seeking to aid the survivors, Uther the Lightbringer sailed for the Isle on a mission of mercy. Fog-bound waters concealed a squadron of Alteraci privateers, and their sudden broadside ignited a vicious sea fight. Uther prevailed, capturing several sailors who, once dragged before Lordaeron's courts, confessed Alterac's treachery. Their testimony doomed their kingdom, and etched their name of Alterac into the books of infamy. In the uneasy following the Second War, masons relaid Caer Daro's toppled stones, and the manor shone once more as the Barovs' prized residence. Their authority radiated outward toward Brill, Southshore, and Terran Mill, and during times of peace, the Fordring family arrived by skiff for hunting and beachside revelry. Artist Renfrey immortalized their final visit on canvas. Tyrion, Karandra, and young Talon posed against the silver horizon, never imagining the portrait would outlast their innocence. Yet the island's renewed tranquility masked a festering rot. Privilege insulated the Barovs until prosperity fermented into gluttony and spite. Determined to chain their fortune to eternity, they bargained with Kel'Thuzad, surrendering their ancestral halls to the cult of the damned. Gilded salons collapsed into the shadowy academy of Scholomance, where arcanists in darkened robes practiced necromancy by dimmed spell-lit fire. Within half a year, the keep sagged with mildew and misery. Acolytes refined sorcerous plagues while loyal servants became unwilling reagents. One volatile strain, an early cousin to the blight that would later scour Lordaeron, escaped its vats mere days before a scheduled visit from Uther the Lightbringer. It swept through Caer Daro in a single night, extinguishing every life and binding the dead as restless shades. Though Spymaster Matthias Shaw claims this variant has vanished from Azeroth, he still shudders at dispatching agents to a place where even the air remembers such ruin. By the close of the Third War, a deathly calm had settled over Caer Daro and the glassy lake that surrounds it. No birds circled overhead, no oars cut the water. Only the drifting shades of townfolk remained, rendered visible when doused in the spectral essence once bottled by loyal servants. Each phantom is shackled to a looping fragment of memory, replaying the instant before the plague snuffed out their breath. In the realm of the living, Weldon Barov quietly secured the deed to the island, claiming ownership of lands now populated solely by the dead. At Scolomance's crumbling portcullis stands Putridius, a towering flesh golem stitched for the sole purpose of denying trespassers, or inducting them into the curriculum as cadavers. Thus the isle endures, a silent classroom where ghosts recite history and newcomers provide tomorrow's lessons in death. Years after the isle had slipped into mournful silence, a lone warlock, driven by whispers of the lost scepter of Sargeras, steered his fell-rigged skiff toward Caer Daro's fog-choked shore. Within the ruined hamlet, he uncovered a clandestine Shadow Council conclave led by Jurgosh the Invoker, their fell candles sputtering amidst necromantic debris. Joined by the fiery sorceress Braylin Firehand, the warlock stormed Scolomance's lower reliquaries, wrenching secrets from tortured Cult of the Damned acolytes until they unearthed their prize, the dust-laden Book of Medivh itself. Triumph proved fleeting. Putridius' stitched monstrosities and lingering spirits surged to defend their grim academy, and the conspirators perished beneath claw, steel, and spell before they could ferry the tome to Gul'dan. To this day, the book's whereabouts remain uncertain, perhaps buried beneath Scolomance's collapsing archives, perhaps spirited away by some unseen shade, but no one knows for sure. The Isle's horrors didn't dim once the Fourth War's flames were snuffed out. Matthias Shaw states that the Argent Crusade patrols the Isle, and still sight Barov specters pacing the rain-slick parapets, while deep below, Darkmaster Gandling tightens his grip on a grisly troop of puppets. Jandis Barov's ghostly silhouette flits through cracked ballrooms, and the bone colossus Rattlegore stalks lecture halls with tireless clatter. Scholomance endures, ever ravenous, as Caer Daro's legend bleeds into a new age of uneasy peace. After the smoke of the Second War cleared, Caer Daro's ramparts rose once more, and the manor resumed its role as the jewel of the Barov estate. From this island bastion, the family's influence radiated outward to Brill, Southshore, and Terran Mill. Yet as the decades crept toward the eve of the Third War, prosperity soured into greed. The Barovs, fearful that time would pry their fingers from their holdings, bargained with Kel'Thuzad, mysterious master of the Cult of the Damned. In a single pact, the gilded halls of Caer Daro were repurposed into Scholomance, a clandestine academy of necromancy masquerading beneath the Manor's weathered stones. Within half a year, the fortress decayed into a crypt. Cult acolytes honed grisly arts, while loyal servants were reduced to test subjects for an experimental plague. The virulent strain erupted shortly before Uther the Lightbringer was due to inspect the keep. No living soul endured its touch, and those it claimed were bound as wailing spirits to the island's fog-shrouded grounds. Deep below, Salram the Fleshcrafter stitched to skirt his earliest abominations from butchered corpses, birthing horrors that would soon stride across Lordaeron. The Third War left the Barovs restored, though only in undeath. Scolomance's corridors grew ever darker under the gaze of Raz Frostwhisper, the Lich Sentinel. After Raz fell, Dark Master Gandling, a mortal necromancer of ruthless ambition, assumed the headmaster's mantle, continuing the legacy began by Kel'Thuzad and Araj the Summoner. Today, constructs, specters, and wandering demons haunt the classrooms unchecked, a testament to the school's single chilling lesson: death is merely the first prerequisite. Deep within Scholomance lurks Dr. Theolin Krastanov, a butcher whose twisted experiments have claimed thousands of lives. Two of his victims, Eva, who is the head maid, and her husband Lucian, who is Alexei Barov's butler, now wander outside the academy as restless spirits, pleading for vengeance. For 6 long months they were trapped within the school and were forced to skulk through Scolomance's corridors, stealing scraps from their former masters at night in an effort to not be found. Until sadly the undead discovered them and turned them into living test subjects. Eva still recalls, in shuddering detail, the torment they endured at Krastanov's hands. The undead surrounded us, constantly tormenting us with horrifying acts of depravity. Finally he came. He introduced himself as Dr. Theolin Krastanov. We came to know him as the Butcher. We finally understood what the screams were from. The Butcher exposed us to pain that we did not know existed. He used us in countless experiments to devise a plague. The days turned to weeks. We would have died on that first day had it not been for that cruel bastard keeping us alive through magical means. We feel nothing. Our souls remain here in limbo. We are unable to leave until our remains are found and spirits laid to rest. At the end of Scholomance in the classic version, you face the Scourge who is running the school, Raz Frostwhisper. Long before he became the Spectral Warden of Scholomance, he walked Azeroth as a hedge mage, or someone who never received formal training, from the rugged kingdom of Stromgarde. An unlicensed spellcaster who scorned Dalaran's gilded lecture halls. Drawn to forbidden truths, he joined Kel'Thuzad's nascent Cult of the Damned and vaulted through its ranks. Raz offered more than loyalty. Inside Stratholme's slaughterhouse, he slit his own throat upon Menethel's gift, smiling as life spilled away. The Lich King rewarded such devotion by raising his corpse as a lich, freezing soul and sinew into a shard of immortal ice, while the paladin, Leonid Bartholomew, looked on in horror. Empowered, Raz led the Scourge's assault on Hearthglen during the Third War, then settled into Scolomance's frost-rimmed lecture halls to oversee necromantic experiments. Aided by the ogre Cormac, he nurtured abominations and plotted to broaden the Lich King's dominion. Even his magistrate Marduk plotted to strip Raz of his power and return him to mortal flesh, though cataclysmic upheavals saw adventurers shatter his form again and again. Legends persist that his chill laughter still skitters through deserted corridors, proof that ambition can ice a man's soul long before death ever does. Most liches safeguard their essence within a phylactery, but Raz broke that convention as thoroughly as he sundered his own throat. His soul orbits Menethel's gift, the frigid altar of his rebirth, hovering like frozen breath in the dark. Occasionally, the specter latches onto a battered keepsake of remembrance, a relic from his mortal days, and then he re-enters his mortal shell. In that fleeting instant, the chill tyrant is shackled to true, beating life again. One of Azeroth's rare reversals, where the curse of undeath recoils into reluctant mortality. After he is mortal again, you're able to kill him for good this time, and return his head to Magistrate Marduk outside of the school. but can only be seen if you have equipped the Spectral Essence, which is from the quest Cristanzus the Herald. House Barov was once the very emblem of Lordaeron's old money, and ruled a stitched-together realm of holdings that began at Caerdaro's sea-battered ramparts and threaded inland through Brill, South Shore, and Terran Mill. Yet their desire to live forever eclipsed rational thinking. The family cut a clandestine bargain with Kel'Thuzad, surrendering their ancestral manor to the Cult of the Damned, and birthing the necromancy academy that would tarnish their name, Scholomance. The pact's price was steep and personal. Patriarch Lord Alexei Barov rose again as a Death Knight in service to the Scourge. Lady Elucia and their impressive daughter Jandis lingered as spectral echoes in gowns of moonlit silk. Alexei's son, Alexei, likewise perished, but after breaking the Lich King's leash, he joined Sylvanas' Forsaken and sought redemption in undeath. Only Weldon Barov remained among the breathing, fleeing Caerdaro's massacre and eventually pledging loyalty to the Alliance. Their vast fortune, charters, deeds, and vault keys should have passed unbroken from one ledger to the next. Instead, the siblings' mutual distrust birthed the corporate shell of Barov Industries, a short-lived venture that dissolved in a blaze of double-crosses, leaving the family riches lost to rumor. Spymaster Matthias Shaw's most recent brief claims that Jandis' spirit still pirouettes through Scolomance's dusty halls. A final flickering ledger entry in House Barov's tale of grasping ambition and spectral consequence. Now I want to talk about each family member a bit, but Lady Elucia really doesn't have any sort of lore outside of she was turned undead and is a mini-boss found in the old Scholomance dungeon. And Lord Alexei really doesn't have anything to note except in myths. But otherwise his early lore is just retelling what I already talked about, with selling his land to Kel'Thuzad and becoming a Death Knight. But otherwise there really isn't any lore for them like there is for their children. And even then, Alexei and Weldon's lore is basically the same, just slightly different since it's told from Alliance and Horde perspectives. In the Mists of Pandaria, though his name once headlined the role of Scolomance's dread faculty, Alexei is no longer faced in combat. His presence lingers instead as a dust-caked talking skull, whose hollow timber pleads with intruders to topple Darkmaster Gandling and purge the Academy's entrenched rot. When Gambling finally falls, scarlet motes whirl around the relic. Bone knits to ghostly flesh, and Lord Alexei Barov appears in ghostly regalia thanking you for ending the curse, and letting him be at peace. Jandis Barov once traced the velvet-lined corridors of Dalaran as an archmage renowned for illusions so good it verged on myth. Her signature glamour splintered her likeness into a dozen mirrored selves that mimicked every gesture from impossible angles, confounding foes who struck at empty air, while the true Jandis struck back. Few could unravel the deceit before steel or spell found their weakness and were struck down. When House Barov bound itself to the Cult of the Damned, Jandis' brilliance endured a cruel metamorphosis. She perished only to awaken within Scholomance as a translucent wraith, her illusions now woven from moon-pale ectoplasm. Whispers claim she served as a silent courier, conveying vials of innocent blood from Dr. Thiel Krastenov's gruesome operating tables to the vampiric Kirtonis the Herald. Thus the once celebrated enchanter lingers, haunting lecture halls where every reflected silhouette might be hers, and none of them safe to trust. Decades drifted by and the Wraith of Jandis grew restless with mere surveillance. Aspiring necromancers and traveling magi ventured into her mirror-bright chamber, where she took up the mantle of instructor. There, in a hush broken only by the rustle of spellbooks, the phantom archmage unraveled the principles of illusion, multiplying herself in a kaleidoscope of silhouettes as living proof that perception, once mastered, is the most lethal magic of all. Long after Azeroth's armies laid down arms, Spymaster Matthias Shaw mentioned that the Argent Crusade scouts had sighted Barov phantoms prowling Scolomance's midnight corridors, Jandis foremost among them, her illusionary prowess unchanged by death. Near her shimmering sanctum they uncovered a ritual hood, its velvet still damp with arcane residue. Shaw urged that the relic remain entombed within the manor, yet curiosity triumphed over caution. The hood now rests beside the Barov family sword, in Hearthglen's Mardenhold Keep, trophies of a lineage that refuses to fade quietly into history. Alexei Barov was one of the two to escape Cardero, but he didn't escape alive, while his brother Weldon escaped it with his life. Alexei was risen into undeath, and was at first cursed to stay there with his father, mother, and sister, but finally broke free of the Lich King's hold and went on to pledge his servitude to the Forsaken. After his brother Weldon escaped Cardero's downfall, he crossed paths with the Forsaken brother, and in a rare spark of fraternal mercy, stayed his hand. Thus the fortune of House Barov lingered between two very different heirs, one breathing, one beyond breath, both vying to decide what legacy the name would carry into the shadows. Rumor insisted the family hoard still lay entombed in Cardero's vaulted cellars, yet the only legal key to that wealth was a set of 4 land deeds scattered somewhere within Scholomance. The paperwork turned sibling rivalry into a blood feud. Alexei vowed that only one Barov would walk away a beneficiary, and it would be him. Stationed at the bulwark in Tirisfal Glades, Alexei enlisted Horde adventurers to retrieve the deeds and put Weldon permanently in the ground. Even his alliance champions answered Weldon's own contract to sever Alexei's head. The inheritance thus became a grim tug-of-war, fought across the plague-blackened fields of the Western Plaguelands. The brothers were later found side by side in Scolomance's antechamber, momentarily united in a crusade to purge lingering Scourge commanders Vectus, Marduk Blackpool, and Raz Frostwhisper. But trust proved as thin as cobwebs. The reunion dissolved on Draenor, where Barov Industries collapsed in mutual betrayal. Alexei, wedged beneath a fell-blasted tree, begged passing heroes to free him, and once again to put Weldon to the sword. He was later glimpsed among the spectators of Highmall's Colosseum, watching combatants spill blood as though studying new strategies for an old, unfinished family war. Weldon Barov's story is basically the same as Alexei's, except with what was stated prior, with him escaping his home alive. He is later found operating out of Chillwind Camp in the Western Plaguelands, and recruited Alliance adventurers to get the 4 deeds. While he did eventually get the deeds, he can only visit those places in memory, for necromancers and specters still guard the gates he once called home. Now in Draenor it's the same as with Alexei, except Weldon is found under the tree and asks you to kill Alexei. He can also be seen watching adventurers fighting in the Colosseum of Highmall. But that's going to do it for this one. Hopefully you did enjoy. Thanks for checking it out. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.